Welcome to another episode of The Heart of the Matter. Today we're talking to Ms. Adetola Akitoye, who is a graduate in economics, but never used her degree and went into baking, the industry of baking. So she makes cakes for a living. And because she's in the cake industry, she's going to have to use milk products like cream, like butter. And so she's looking at the milk industry and saw how so important it is and how so much more could be made of the whole cattle rearing business than just selling beef. And so we'll be talking to her because she believes that through this production of milk, she has a solution to the cattle herdsman versus farmer problems that we've been plagued by in northern Nigeria. So stay tuned to The Heart of the Matter as we will be with her as soon as we come back from this break. Welcome back to The Heart of the Matter, where today we're talking with Ms. Adetola Akitoye. Tola, you read economics.
Yes, I did.
And then you went into baking. There's
Yes.
such a wide gulf between the two.
Well, I've always baked, so
Okay.
I always baked right from
Okay,
when
so
I was a child.
why did you bother studying economics if you knew you were going to end up baking?
You know, when 10 years, I finished university about 10 years ago or so, and 10 years ago, so I would have started uni 14 years ago, then parents were not as liberal as they are now, so I knew I wasn't going to go and tell my mother that after she had paid for me to go to England, I was going to study baking. So I started
But
to do
you went
economics.
into baking, and
Yeah,
you
I
do Andy Clark's
Yes,
cakes.
yes, I do.
And then, what's it been like?
It's been great. It's been challenging. We have so many issues in Nigeria. The light is a big issue for me. The lack of good quality raw materials, but we get through it one day at a time.
Okay. Now, in addition to your passion for baking,
Yeah.
you also have a passion for Nigeria.
Yes, I do.
And you see a lot of the national problems we have.
Yes, I do.
And one of those problems is Fulani herdsmen.
Yes.
And you believe you have a solution to that problem.
Yes, I think I think I have a solution to the problem. I think it would work because
Okay.
it appeals to our national persuasion, which is money. It's sad, but it's the truth.
Okay, so you believe that money will actually make the herdsmen give up land grabbing, etc., etc., etc.
Yes.
So before we talk about your solution to the herdsman problem, let's talk about milk. Because right from birth, children need milk.
Yes.
Okay, for the first year or so, they depend on their mother's milk. But milk produces so many things. Tell us a bit more about milk.
So milk, in Europe, milk production is the basic reason why a lot of farmers go into cattle rearing or cattle farming. So yes, they need beef, but beef is like, they normally slaughter the cows after every 3 years. So they
So
wouldn't.
when it's milk production,
It has
drops.
declined, yes. So they slaughter the cows. So they have like a backlog of cows coming in every single day. So they don't keep the male ones, the bulls. They don't really keep them. They slaughter them immediately they're older.
Okay, they pass their
Yes,
useful
so
life.
they don't really keep them. But I think that the major problem we have in Nigeria with cattle, the Fulani herdsmen, is that they haven't yet understood the value of their cattle. And the value of their cattle is in the milk. I know that Peak spend about 100 million pounds importing milk to Nigeria every year. So milk is highly valued. Everybody in Nigeria consumes
Drinks
milk. Yes,
Okay,
so
and
it's,
we drink a lot of it. as
we
well.
drink a lot of it.
You could put half a tin of milk in a teacup.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a highly lucrative aspect of dairy farming that we have not looked at.
Okay, so you're talking about the milk. What are the other products? that
Okay,
can
so
come?
you can get buttermilk. So when you churn the milk and you get the butter, which is very expensive.
So butter is one of the first product. Okay.
It's one of the first products. You
Okay.
can get full cream,
Okay.
which is used for cakes and frostings, and it can be used for cooking. You get cheese, and then cheese comes in. It's like an entire family on its own. You have the mozzarella cheese, you have the cheddar cheese, you have.
And we can produce all this
Of course.
locally? Well, because I thought that these cheeses were produced in different regions and they had that special flavor from that region.
Well, that's true. However, cheese is produced by adding coagulants to milk, and then,
Okay.
but then you could produce an African mozzarella cheese. There's nothing,
Nothing
stopping you from doing that, and then it has its own African flavor. We could add, say, agbalumo to it, because when I used to work in Waitrose, we used to have the cheddar cheese with the fruits in them. So there's nothing stopping us from doing.
You can do lots of things.
Lots of different
Are
things.
you thinking of going into this sort of milk?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I want to go into milk production
Okay.
at some point, but not right now. Maybe, say, 5-6 years.
Okay, so we've got, coming from milk, milk itself is very, very critical.
Yes.
Then you've got butter, you've got cream.
Buttermilk.
You've got
cream.
cheese.
You've got cheese.
And a variety of
You've got
cheeses.
cream
possible.
cheese.
Cream cheese,
You've
okay.
got you've got the cottage cheese. You've got yogurt. Yogurt. You need milk for yogurt. So there's so many things you could do. Ice cream.
Okay.
Ice cream you have with milk. So everything, cookies, baking, you need milk for baking. So and in industrial baking, you need things like milk concentrate, because then you don't have to use as much milk. So there's so many.
There's so much. So
very
do you have an idea of, we know that a cow probably sells at about $250,000 naira.
Yes.
Okay. How much is that cow worth if it was allowed to produce milk? How much do you think a farmer would make out of his one cow?
One cow in over 3 years. So about 3 years.
The production time is about 3 years.
The
Okay.
milking, the premium, when they're able to milk very well, they last about 3 years. So I would say about 5 million naira.
So from $250,000 to 5 million.
Yes.
What kind of outlay would the farmer have to make in order to be able to exploit milking the cow?
He would need lots of water, so you would have to have like I wouldn't say an irrigation system, but like a borehole system that cuts across your farm so that your cow has access to water. Or you could have like a tap system where you train the cows to go to the tap to get the water themselves. Cows are quite intelligent, so they can go there themselves. And then you have to feed them with sorghum, things like maize, millet.
So the cows, free range?
Free range, housed, whatever you want to do. So long as they get food and water, they're fine. And they have to be in a shade. So it has to be a place that is not too hot so they don't get dehydrated.
Okay. So now going from the desirability of producing milk from our cows, how do we now utilize this? What are the things that you think can be done to utilize this solution to solve the herdsman problem?
Okay, so in Nigeria, money talks. This is it. And people would always go for want of a better expression, what is going to pay me, as they will say. So if it's not going to pay me, then I'm not going to do it. And even the younger Fulani guys, the ones who are in Lagos here, even when you get them to do things for you, because my office is in Alagomeji and there are quite a lot of them, and want to lift heavy machinery, and if you don't pay them, they're not going to do it, which is fair enough. So I realized that the major problem in Nigeria is that people do not yet understand the value of what they have. So you have a cow, and your cow could give you 5 million naira over a period of 3 years. So that's approximately 1.6 million naira every year. Now, if you educated the Fulani herdsmen and their owners to see the value of having their cows in a ranch, I don't think that they would still take those cows about for 250,000 naira.
Okay. Now here's the other side of the problem. These ranchers, some of these ranchers are said to have AK-47s.
Yes.
an AK-47 costs far more than the cow costs.
Yes.
So is the problem really money?
Well, it is still, I still think it is money, because if you have 500 cows and each one is going to give you 5 million naira, so that comes to 200 no, that's not 250 million naira. That's more than 250 million naira. That's almost, we're going into billions now. Now, if you have that amount of money, why would you want to risk it?
Okay. So the point you're making is that you really cannot produce milk.
Yes.
Or you can't raise dairy cows
In a nomadic
setting.
No, you can't.
Okay. And so what, have you any plans? Because you have this solution, but how does this solution get implemented?
Well, we would need the government. They would have to start so I remember when we were young, the First Lady had a program called Better Life for Rural Women. And, they would go about educating women about how to, they used to educate them about, my mother used to be involved and they used to educate them about the sexual reproduction, how to look after their homes, family planning, they used to train them on how to get, how to weave baskets and things like that. So it's the same thing. We have to look for a way
of being able to
get the message across to them, because once they understand, then they wouldn't. Even if someone gave me money, if I had a cow and someone says, okay, well, I hate Christians and I want you to go and kill them, I wouldn't bother. Why would I bother with 250K if I can have 1.5 million naira?
So have you thought of actually being involved in this drive to educate the farmers?
I have never actually thought about it, because how I got into this whole cow thing really was, I used to work for a company called Cinelink, and all we wanted to do was to sell machines. And we hit a stumbling block.
What kind of machines?
Yogurt making.
Okay.
Not yogurt making machines, yogurt packaging machines.
Okay.
So we form, fill, and seal. But we hit a stumbling block, which is we don't have milk in Nigeria. We literally have no milk in Nigeria. And that is a huge problem, because a lot of the things like yogurt, cheeses, everything we produce, every time, even the dairy farmers here, the yogurt producers here in Nigeria, they all use dried milk. You rarely find, apart from Farm Fresh, you rarely find farmers who are yogurt companies who are making yogurt with fresh milk. Okay. So it's a really, really big problem.
Okay, so the idea is to get lots more people. Well,
that was the stumbling block for us, and as a result of that, we had to give up, really, because there was. So I now thought about it that actually, if people understood what they could do with their cow, then we wouldn't have this problem of going about
looking for
yes.
Yeah, we would have enough milk. As a matter of fact, we should even be able to export milk.
Of course, we should. And if you think about it, that we have a huge expanse of land in Nigeria, and we can grow anything. I couldn't believe it when I heard that strawberries are growing in Jos. And that tells you that if we put our minds,
we could do almost anything.
And it's so amazing that we're not even utilizing 1% of our potential.
We'll be back to pick you up on that particular topic, utilizing our potential. We're just going to go for a short break. So viewers, stay tuned to The Heart of the Matter. We'll be back in a moment.
I could feel myself falling, like saying, bro, you're falling. Wow, you're falling. This guy, you are actually falling down, oh. This stuff that you see on TV is happening to you. God is real.
Who are you? Why are you black?
Welcome to The Heart of the Matter.
The whole world was looking for me.
She called me, she's like, oh my God, Ines, it's God that brought you back. And I just dropped to the floor.
I'm going to dive right into the heart of the matter.
What are your thoughts on Canada?
My thoughts on Canada?
Yeah.
Real random.
I'm really so excited today.
Just a tad.
very passionate about leveling the playing field.
Listening is not the only aspect of communication.
I believe that the solution is from the bottom up. If you don't talk now, you talk later.
There's glory. There's glory.
So let's break it down.
You can advertise your businesses, brands, and events on the Heart of the Matter. For more information, please send an email to hotmpr@gmail.com.
Tola, just before we went on a break, you said that Nigerians are realizing less than 1% of our potential. I want you to expand on that. What are the things that we could be doing that we're not?
Okay, so there's so much we could do. We've talked about milk, cocoa production. Ghana is still was one of the biggest producers of cocoa in Africa, and we have a bigger land space than Ghana does. Cassava, our cassava could be used for so many things, and we haven't even. The government has not put in any initiatives to do research on how we could turn our cassava into, say, bread. And I'm not talking about, I know there's cassava flour.
Edible starch from
Yes.
cassava is used in all kinds of...
Yes, we could use it in production. We could use it, say, half cassava flour, half normal wheat flour in biscuit production. But there's no initiative by the government to, it's still very crude. So it's really what's the private individuals, the efforts they have been putting in. And if we're to bring Nigeria forward, we would need the effort of the government to be able to get to that point. So there's so much. Even leather tanning, we don't
So
do
this
any.
is still all agriculture.
Yes.
Okay, and then moving from agriculture to industry surrounding
Yes,
agriculture.
of course.
So you said cocoa.
Yes.
And I think Nigeria and Ghana are the only two countries left in the world that dry their cocoa in the sun.
Yes.
And because of that, our cocoa is premium cocoa because it has a flavor that people want to blend into their chocolate. But can we produce chocolate in Nigeria?
Of course. Of course, there's so many people who
Won't
are
it melt?
producing. Well, if you temper it, you have to temper it to the temperature of the country. Maybe some, but not. It wouldn't be your.
Because our production of chocolate is so that we can export.
Yes, but we could also put stabilizers. So a lot of the chocolate that comes into our country is also chocolate that. So if you get a Snicker bar in the supermarket now, it doesn't melt because it has stabilizers in it. Okay. And I know people are like, oh, stabilizers, they're not good for you, but you have to put in something to hold it till it gets to its destination. So I think it's very possible we can do it.
So there's still so much potential in agriculture. You talked about strawberry jam.
Yes.
Can we do that in Nigeria?
Of course we can. We could do papaya jam. We could do pineapple jam. We could do tomato jam. We can do onion jam. We can do...
onion jam,
It's a savory.
Okay.
It's a savory type of jam. You can put it in your burgers. You can spread it on your bread because it's sweet and sour. Okay. So it's an adult jam. It's not for children.
Okay. I also, because I used to be in the cocoa business.
Okay.
Many years ago, I used to export cocoa beans.
Okay.
And there's a time that the government banned the exportation of cocoa beans in order to try to add value to our stock in Nigeria, so that if you couldn't export beans, you'd have to take it to the next step, which is cocoa butter and cocoa cake. The Western countries that are major importers said, we don't want your butter, we don't want your cake, we have factories that produce this stuff over here, so if you don't export us beans, you have to eat it.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they have a 1-year stock, a 1-year buffer stock of cocoa beans in Rotterdam. Okay. So all the efforts we have, because the key is being able to export these products.
Yes.
And all the efforts we have will be thwarted by countries who purchase their raw materials from us and then prevent us from being able to take it to the next step because they have the strength of having done this for many years and they've got the money to hold us back. So what would we do?
Okay, so my mother always said to me when we were young that if you're in a class and the person who is the most intelligent person is someone you don't like, but they have what you need, you have to go to them. and you have to get what you need. We know that the West, they have the technology, they have the money to give us, to process these things, and they can produce it even at a cheaper rate. But the other aspect is that we can go to them and say, okay, you know what? We want to add value to our cocoa. How can we do that? How can we work in partnership with you? There must be something, there must be a way. And also our population is growing. So there's nothing stopping us from producing it here and selling it to our own people. So I know that Cadbury's chocolate, the chocolate drink milk, they import it ready-made and they just pack it here in Nigeria.
Yeah, because you see the jobs end up at the other end of production.
Yes.
So let's go back to milk now, because it's also an agricultural product. And you've talked about many of the things that you can get from milk. What would you say to the young Nigerian who is listening to you right now and is saying, how do I start? Where do I start from? What do I do?
Okay, so the first thing to do is you would need to get cows. You would need a large space, a large farm.
You need a ranch.
A ranch.
Okay.
Well, you don't necessarily have to have a ranch if you don't have one. You can start with, say, 4 or 5 acres of land and start with 50 cows and take it from there. So you would need some cows.
So you'd need a fair amount of capital.
Yes, a fair amount.
Do you know if it's possible to get that kind of capital from the bank?
Well, I know that Lagos State is running a scheme where they give you land for agriculture. I also know that you can, and I know that Lagos State is also running a scheme where they give you a loan for 5 million naira to start up, to run a business. And I know with 5 million naira, you definitely purchase a sizable amount of cows, yes.
Okay, but you've got to think about veterinary surgeons to look after your cows. You've got to think about the equipment to milk them.
Well, the equipment to milk them, because labor is so cheap in Nigeria, I wouldn't advise that you go straight into buying lots and lots of equipment to milk them as well, because you also have to get to grips with looking after cows.
So you manually milk them?
You can manually milk them. If you get you can get cheaper labor. The people who look after the cows every day can do that for you. The major thing you would have to do is you would have to get a cooling.
You've got to keep track of the sanitation.
Yes, you have to. But all those things can come with training.
Okay.
You can train them to, and you could also. So if they're milking them, I wouldn't expect that they'll be milking them in an open bucket. So it'll just be like, they'll have like tubes go. It'll be going into a sterilized bucket or something. And with training, you could do a lot of those things. And there are a lot of farms in Europe where you can go and get training on how to raise your cattle and how to look after them. So it's highly lucrative, but it's also highly capital intensive. But I think the pros of it outweigh the cons, and you can get help from the government, definitely.
Now let's go back to the herdsmen.
Yes.
Because that's you want to see that problem solved.
Yes.
So can you give me step 1, 2, 3?
Okay, so for me, if I had the power to change anything, I would, and I do actually, I would go to the government and I'd say, okay, this is what I think would work, and this is how we can go about it. So the first thing is to actually sit down with the people who own the cattle and say, you know what, guys, let's do the maths. This Fulani nomadic lifestyle is not really helping your business. I know this cattles are worth a lot, and they are worth quite a lot of money. So you can get more value if they're in a ranch than if they are roaming
you
about.
You even get better meat.
Yes, you'd get better. Oh yeah, the meat in the north tastes completely different to the meat in the south. It's a real revelation. You would get better meat. You would get more money. You could even make more than 5 million naira.
Now, you've actually written a letter,
yes,
an open letter to the president, which was posted on Bella Niger.
Yes.
Okay, and that got no response whatsoever.
Yes.
So would you consider writing a letter directly to the president?
Yes,
or
I
to
will
the Vice
actually.
President, or to the Minister
Yes,
of
I would do
Agriculture?
that. I would write a letter to them, and I would say, the problem in Nigeria as a whole is that, like I said previously, is that we're looking at it as, oh, Nigeria is about me. Nigeria is not about anybody. Nigeria is about us. Nigeria is not even a place. If we took all the people from Nigeria and put them in America, America would become Nigeria, and Nigeria will become this beautiful place that would be organized. So it's about us, and we have to change our mindset.
ways.
If we are able to convince these people that you can make money, the whole essence of taking these cows, and because they're also suffering, they've left their families, they've left their home to go to all these different states, is because they want to make money and to feed their cows. But with a little fertilizer, there are even these plants that they make now. They're called, that they grow now. It's called they're hydroponics, where you plant.
Okay, you can plant in water.
In water, but it grows so quickly, so you can feed your cow very quick, and they can eat more. So it's easier now. It's not as difficult as it used to be. So there's nothing stopping us from taking this step forward. So if I came to Nestle today and I said, okay, you know what, guys, I can provide you with 1 million liters of milk every day, they'll come to me. And these companies have the money and the infrastructure to come and get the milk. So they already have refrigerated vans. They would even set up a small company or a factory close by to where the milk is being produced, so they can process it and bring it to the town.
Now, there are viewers out there watching you, and what would you say to them if they wanted to work with you? If they said, Tola, we're interested in what you're talking about, will you, can we come and join hands with you?
Of course, they can.
So we can we'll put your email address stuff up there.
Of course, I'm open to that, and I would love for us to move forward as a nation. I'd love for my generation to do something different, because I meet a lot of people who say, oh, the government is not helping and this is not working. And I always say to them that it's not just the government alone, it's us as people. We're not really willing to, I'm not willing to sacrifice my business for night. So now thinking about them, like, that's a bit selfish. I have to
give up something.
To
for
get
Nigeria.
something, yes.
Well, it's been great having you on the Heart of the Matter, and we look forward to having you again.
No problem.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
Viewers, we'll be back in a minute with the conclusion to this episode, so stay tuned. Well, you've listened to Tola. She's talked about many of the things, and some of the major points that she made. First, that we have so much potential, many of the things we could do with our resources. We could take our resources the next step further. Then she talked about the fact that there's a lot more to a cow than beef. Milk will earn the farmer far more than the beef will earn him. And so it's important that we encourage farmers to look at dairy milk instead of just the beef that they're producing. So it's been our pleasure bringing you this episode. We'll be back again next week with another episode of The Heart of the Matter. Until then, stay blessed.